Extract your own elements from stock photos with the help of subject selection. In this tutorial, I'll show you how simple it can be to make your own elements using stock photos and the Select Subject menu option. This video is being filmed in expert mode of Photoshop Elements, but the instructions are exactly the same for Photoshop except where noted. So I've already created a new 12" by 12" document at 300 pixels per inch with a white background. In the downloads for this tutorial, I've included 2 stock photos for practicing with. Open the flower photo now, like I've already done here. Then get the Move tool. On the document, hold down the Shift key and click and drag the photo onto the new document, and then let go. Now, as a note, holding down the Shift key while adding something to a document ensures that the item will land in the center of the document. Then press the letter D to reset the color chips to the default of black over white. But before we get into the tutorial, I want to show you what stock photos actually are and what kinds of stock photos will work best for this technique. I'll also list a couple of websites that I feel are a great place to start. So stock photos are not just any old image that you find online. Stock photos are photos that are licensed for specific uses. There are many stock photo websites that allow you to purchase rights to use a photo. However, there are some stock websites that have free stock photos as well. For some stock photos, you have to credit the photographer. For others, you don't. You always want to read the license to know for sure. Your safest place to start with stock photos are 2 different websites. The first is a website called Unsplash. This website offers 2 levels of stock photo usage. The first is the regular level. It's totally free. You can use the images for personal or commercial use, and crediting is not required. The second level is called Unsplash Plus, and that's something you can pay for, which gives you access to more images and unlimited downloads. I use the free version and have found that the photos are beautiful and well done and more than adequate for my needs. Another website I recommend trying is Pixabay. Their license is basically the same. All of the photos on Pixabay are free. However, you have to be careful which photos you click on, because their website also displays photos from iStock, which is a separate stock photo website that requires you to pay to be a member. So just be careful with that. So the best way to find an element to extract from a photo on either website is to search for single words like flower, leaf, or butterfly, or maybe include a color like purple flower or blue flower, green leaf, something like that. For this kind of tutorial, there are 4 important things that play a major factor in which photos work best. Number 1 is the actual number. This tutorial will work best with photos that have 1 item or 1 subject. This will allow the selection process to work much better. Number 2, the direction of the element or subject in the photo. The element or subject of the photo needs to be straight on or facing the camera. The light pink flower on the right is not facing the camera like the dark pink flower is. Number 3, the background. The more simple the background is, the easier the element will be to extract. The blue flower will be harder for select subject because of the other blue flower directly behind it. You want good contrast between the background and the subject to help the selection process along. And number 4, coloring. Just make sure that the photo you use doesn't have an odd color cast to it. It will make the extracted element look strange once it's no longer in the photo. The white flower on the right, in this instance, will have a strange bluish color cast that might not work once you extract it from the photo. So now that you know what kinds of photos work best, we can get started with the tutorial. So the first thing we're going to do is extract the flower from the photo. So our flower picture layer should be the active layer in the layers panel, And then in the menu bar, choose Select Subject, and it'll run the algorithm, and it did a really good job. So now in the Layers panel, we're going to click on the Add Layer Mask icon to mask away the unselected pixels. Next, we're going to clean up the extraction if it's needed. Sometimes Select Subject does such a good job you don't need to do this step, but in this case we do have a little bit of cleanup we're going to need to do. As you can see, there's some little like black triangles that are left in between many of the petals, and we want to clean some of that up. So the first thing we're going to do is zoom in on the flower to better see between the petals, and we'll do that by pressing Control+ in Windows or Command+ on a Mac multiple times, and then we're going to get the polygonal lasso tool. And then in the tool options, we're going to click on the new selection icon. We're going to set the feather to 0, and we will check anti-aliasing. So now on the document, I want to select one of these little areas, but I can see that I'm not quite zoomed in far enough in order to easily do that. So I'm going to zoom in once or twice more, and that will allow me to better select one of these spots. So then on the document, click to place the beginning of the first segment. So I'm going to click right here. And then we only want to remove this little black triangle area, or as much of it as we can. So I'll move the mouse into the next position, and then I'll click once to create the next segment. And I'll continue to do that. I'll move this, click again. And then when you're ready to close the selection, we're going to click at the beginning where the first segment started. So something like that. So once your selection is ready, press the letter X to switch the foreground color chip to white if it isn't white already. Then we're going to press Control Backspace in Windows or Command Delete on a Mac to fill the selection with white. Then you can press Control D in Windows or Command D on a Mac to deselect. Whoop, hang on here. Now, as a note, you can see that there's still a few of those darker pixels here, but I just want to tell you that it's okay. You don't have to be perfect here. We just want to remove the most obvious part of those little black triangles, and here's why. Right now, let me show you. I'll zoom out. This flower is massive on this 12 by 12 inch document. We're going to be making this flower a lot smaller before the tutorial's over. So it's not even going to be visible, these little tiny black marks that are left. So all we need to do is just make sure the bulk of the little black triangles is gone, and the rest will disappear, especially once we add a drop shadow too. You're not even going to see it. So that makes the cleanup process pretty easy. So now you're going to repeat this process. Let me zoom back in quite a ways and get into position here of clicking to create the selection. We'll click, and then close the selection. And then we'll use our keyboard shortcut of Control Backspace in Windows or Command Delete on a Mac to fill the selection with white. Now just keep in mind, since we're using a layer mask, we're not technically filling the photo layer with white. We're actually using white to mask away these pixels in our layer mask. So just so make sure you don't get confused with that. Once you have finished going around the flower and getting rid of some of those little black triangles, I'll meet you back here in just a moment. Okay, so I'll do this last one with you here. Click to create the segments, and then I'll click to close the selection. Then I'll press Control Backspace in Windows or Command Delete on a Mac to fill this selection with white, and then I'll press Control D in Windows or Command D on a Mac to deselect. Then I can press Control minus in Windows or Command minus on a Mac multiple times to bring my window back down to size. The next thing we're going to do is save the element as a PNG file for future use. So first, let's turn our rulers on. To do that, in the menu bar, choose View Rulers. This is just going to help us visualize just how big this flower is. Then press Control T in Windows or Command T on a Mac to get the transform options. Then on the document, hold down the Alt key in Windows or the Option key on a Mac and click and drag from a corner handle to make the flower smaller. we want to reduce the size of the flower until it's roughly somewhere between 3 and 4 inches in diameter. We don't want it to be too big. We don't want to go too small either, because we just want it to be about right. Now, this looks like it's somewhere between 3 and 4 inches. So I'm going to go ahead and click the check mark to commit. Now, as a note, even the flower at this size is still pretty large on a 12 by 12 inch document. I plan to resize this flower smaller once I use it on a page, but it's always a good idea to save an element a little bit bigger than you think you'll need, because you can always make it smaller. So now in the Layers panel, we will click on the visibility icon of the background layer to temporarily hide it. Then we're going to get the rectangular marquee tool. In the tool options, click on the new selection icon, set the feather to 0 pixels, and set the aspect to normal. Photoshop set the style to normal. Then on the document, we will click and drag out a selection around the flower. Just make sure that the flower is totally within the selection. So something like that. And then in the menu bar, choose Image, Crop to remove the excess blank pixels. Then you can press Ctrl D in Windows or Command D on a Mac to deselect. Now we can save this document as a PNG file with a unique name. And as a note, if you plan to make a few of these, it's a good idea to create a folder on your computer just for these elements. Then they will be easier to find in the future. Once you have saved your PNG file, you can close this document without saving. Once you have saved your flower as a PNG file, you can use it on a scrapbook page or other project. So here's a page that I wanted to use my purple flower on. I've already moved the flower onto my document and resized it a little smaller. All I have left to do is add a drop shadow. So to do that, in the menu bar, choose Layer, Layer Style, Style Settings. Photoshop users, please see the manual for instructions on adding a drop shadow. So in the dialog box, set the lighting angle to 120 degrees, then click directly on the words drop shadow to open the settings. Set the size to 20, set the distance to 25, and the opacity to 50%. Then you can click OK to close the dialog box. Now I can finish up my page. So in the downloads for this class, I've also included a picture of a green leaf for extracting. Try these same steps with that photo and save your results. I decided to use that leaf on my page. You can see it beneath the purple flower. There's also a cream rose in the top left corner that I extracted from another stock photo as well. If you found this video helpful, please give it a like and consider subscribing to our channel. This has been Jennifer Juris with Digital Scrapper. We help you get your stories told.